Hey, welcome everyone. I'm Jack Llewellyn, and this is Cartels, Conspiracies, and Camarena. Today I'm going to give you a brief history of the rapid rise and equally rapid fall of Los Zetas, one of the most notorious and violent of all the Mexican cartels. We're going to talk about the Zetas for a couple of reasons, but most importantly, it's my belief that the reasons why the Zetas fell apart, or at least some of them, are highly reflective of issues that many cartels have, structural issues within cartels, as is evidenced by the rapid rise and fall of some other cartels. And I think it also says something about those cartels that have survived over time, most notably CDS, but also to a lesser extent, CJNG. We're also going to do this as kind of an overview because we could spend hours talking about the history of the Zetas, the personalities and things. And don't worry, we'll have more videos later about the Zetas. And we'll also talk about it more on my podcast, so check that out if you'd like. Now, when we're talking about the Zetas, one of the most important things to keep in mind at the outset is that at one point, the DEA and other law enforcement in the United States regarded the Zetas as the most technologically advanced, the most sophisticated, and the most dangerous cartel in Mexico. And the scope of their operations was pretty extensive. We've got a map here that will show you that really reflects the breadth and the scope of their operations and their influence. And it's that sophistication, it's that technological component, and the breadth of their operations that makes their rapid fall all the more unusual, all the more interesting. So that's why we're going to talk about them, and that's what I want you to keep in mind. If we want to talk about the history of the Zetas, we have to start with an uprising in southern Mexico by a group called the Zapatistas. And at one point, the Mexican army, in an effort to kind of combat this insurgency, trained a group of special forces, highly trained, highly sophisticated. Turns out, though, fighting the Zapatistas wasn't a full-time occupation for this special forces group. So some of them were sent to northern Mexico as part of the anti-drug efforts. And that's when this group of special forces associated with and became known to the Gulf Cartel. We've talked about the Gulf Cartel before. So in the late 1990s, Ociel Cardenas Guillen, and we have a picture of him, he becomes the leader of the Gulf Cartel, and he meets one of the leaders of this special forces group, a lieutenant by the name of Arturo Guzman de Cenas, also known as Z1. We have a picture of him as well. This association between Cardenas Guillen and Z1 results in a group of about 30 of these highly trained special forces ceasing to engage in their law enforcement activities and instead becoming the armed and the military wing of the Gulf Cartel. And initially, they're put in charge of restoring the Gulf Cartel's influence and really dominance in Nuevo Laredo, which, as we've talked about before, is a very, very important location for drug trafficking into the United States. So the Zetas take over. Again, at this point, they're not known as the Zetas, but we've got this group of special forces. They're the military wing of the Gulf Cartel. Things are going well until 2003 when Cardenas Guillen is arrested. He's jailed in Mexico, and the general belief is for the next couple of years, nothing really changes. The Gulf Cartel kind of continues its operations. The Special Forces Group does its thing, and everything goes along pretty well until about 2007, when Cardenas Guillen is extradited to the United States, and that's when things start to fall apart. At that point, the Zetas really start to break away from the Gulf Cartel, and they establish their own set of dominance in Nuevo Laredo. They do this initially under the leadership of somebody by the name of Heriberto Lascano, okay? Z3, and we have a picture of him as well. Z3 is the one who really is in charge of and controlling this movement of the Zetas away from the Gulf Cartel. He ends up being killed by Mexican Marines as he left a baseball game. At that point, the Trevino brothers, Miguel, alias Z40, and Omar, his real name is Alejandro, but he goes by Omar Z42, they became the leaders of the Zetas, and they were the ones who, in particular, established them as incredibly violent massacres, lots of activity, and things that made them public enemy number one. Okay? The Mexican government set out to bring down the Zetas. In 2013, Miguel Angel Trevino Morales, okay, Z40, is arrested in Nuevo Laredo. Things get a little bit rocky with the Zetas at that point. Then Omar Trevino Morales takes over. He ends up being arrested in 2015, and that leads directly to the fall of the Zetas. So during this point in time, as leadership changes, there becomes internal struggles. Okay? These internal struggles lead to divisions amongst the cartel members. They lead to factions breaking off, and it destabilizes the cartel itself. As a result, over time, and by the time the two Morales brothers were picked up, there was nothing left, right? The cartel had splintered into many different little groups and things, and the Zetas, this big, powerful, dangerous organization, essentially ceased to exist. So today, the Zetas just aren't what they used to be. There's a group called Zetas Old School that purports to be a breakoff of or have some historical relationship to Los Zetas. The Northeast Cartel may also have some elements of the Zetas. La Linea in Ciudad Juarez may also have some elements. But really, it's hard to identify, this severe fragmentation. It's almost impossible to know which groups really do contain elements of the Zetas. But the bottom line is the leaders are in jail or dead, and the Zetas don't exist anymore. And we can say that about, the Knights Templar. You can say that about La Familia Michoacana, at least to some extent, and about some others. And that's why their rise and fall is so particularly interesting. All right, that was a short history of the Zetas. If you like this, if you think it's interesting, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, And we're going to be back with more videos talking about Mexican cartels and the Camarena case on Cartels, Conspiracies, and Camarena. Have a good night.